welcome to Ask Me Anything. This is episode 3 of the Getting to the Core podcast, and I am Britta, and I'm the co-founder and co-director of COR, which is a personal growth company that has been around in different configurations for over 20 years. So this is my first Ask Me Anything, actually my first Facebook Live. So, and the theme for this month is at COR is new beginnings. And so this is my new beginning. So what happens when we have a new beginning? We're nervous, which is what is happening for me right now. I'm nervous and it's uncomfortable. Yeah, like so. One of the things that I would recommend is that you, when you are about to start something new, that you find ways to resource yourself. And before you even start starting a new adventure, to make sure that you have support. So, for example, you might see Sarah popping in here, who's helping me. Here's Sarah, who's helping me in case I'm having any problems with technology, because that's also a new thing for me, to really be up on the latest technology. So I got myself support, yeah, and I'm outside, which is what I love. I love trees, I love nature. So all that is already helping me, and I would highly recommend that for you. So I'm gonna now start answering some questions here. So, hi, Frida. So, Frida is saying, my husband, Brad, and I have made it to the other side after a few months of struggling in our marriage. I am so grateful that we made it through that tough period. But I'm wondering, what are some best practices that you recommend for invigorating love and intimacy into a relationship, especially when you're feeling too busy and tired? I would love your perspective. Great question. So what are some practices when you feel tired and busy? So the first practice that I found in my marriage that really works is to make sure that you have time scheduled into the day and into the week, and that you make your relationship a priority. That means you put that time with your beloved in first. If you do daily planning or weekly planning, you make sure you have a slot of time. Ideally, you have a time every day where you connect, even when you're tired, where you just have a check-in, even if it's like 5 minutes of, listening to one another without interruption, just active listening at the end of the day, maybe after dinner, when you're both kind of done with your daily duties, just spend 10 minutes of listening to one another without interrupting. Active listening means you just let the other one talk and you receive them without judgment, without any of your own agenda. You're just kind of diving into the other person's world. This is a super simple practice. And yet I'm always amazed, I've been teaching this for 30 years, and I'm always amazed when I'm actually doing it with my husband, Lee, and when we just take the time to just share, anything we want to share from the day that was either really difficult or really beautiful. And just to, you can do a high and a low, and just share what got moved in you, what did you face, what just happened for you, so that's just a simple practice that you can do daily. And then when you have more time, at least once a week or twice a week, to make date time, where you actually have more time. I would say at least 2 hours, 3 hours is better, of making time. So that's one thing, to invigorate and have that be like a super practice. Another that just goes in no matter what. Yeah. And another one I would recommend is just sharing. I'm tired, and would you be willing to just rub my feet for a few minutes, or listen to me for a few minutes, to making meaning requests that would feel actually good if you're tired, and maybe you can take turn, one day him, one day you, or something, so you both actually get some resourcing when you're tired. So I see all these little little emojis going across the screen. That's really cute. So I hope that was helpful, and I'm just really, it's really awesome actually when you've just made it through a time of struggling, to put in structures then, because usually when you're kind of grooving, you don't think about these kind of things. And then when you're not grooving anymore, when you get into conflict, then you don't remember these kind of structures, So it's good in a time of when it's beautiful and it's all flowing and it's working, to talk about, okay, what can we do to enhance our relationship? What would feel good daily, weekly, monthly, yearly to do, and put it into the schedule before kind of the shit hits the fan, before the struggle comes up again, which will be coming up again. And you already know what struggles come up. In a relationship, it's pretty much, after a while, you can play the tape, I'm going to say this and you're going to say that, and then I'm going to say this and you're going to say that. It's like you can kind of already know what are going to be the points of struggle. And then you put the structure in before these struggles happen, and then make an agreement to adhere to them, like when the struggles happen. I find that incredibly powerful. And then the last thing, Frida, for you particularly, and anybody, make sure you have fun in the relationship. Make sure you structure things, you schedule things that you both love, that bring you joy. It's so important to do things together that nourish your soul and his soul, and that are just those kind of things together that light you both up. Yeah. So let me read you some other questions here. So Leah says, I have a hard time having a beginner's mind when looking at a pattern or strategy that is very familiar and ingrained. I think I know all about it and have so many judgments, it's hard to look at it with fresh perspective. Any tips for approaching something that feels old and tired with a beginner's mind, and without all the judgments and opinions I've built up over the years about these old patterns? So if I understand this question right, it's about how do I approach an old pattern or a strategy with a new mind, with a beginner's mind, and how am I open to receive something new or something that is already very ingrained, so that's also really an excellent question. And so just thinking of an example right now, probably an example is like maybe a way that we approach a family member, like we, especially maybe parents or other family members we've been around with for a long time, and we have a group with them. This is how I'm always around them. This is how they are. This is how I am. This is what I think about my dad. This is what my dad thinks about me. Probably in families, the structure is the most ingrained, so, and we have lots of judgments. We have built these judgments over years and years and years, right? So how do we approach this with a new way of looking? So one thing that comes to me, or just came to me, so I'm just going to say it, is what if you saw your parent just as a child? Just imagining your parent came into this world also as a little innocent child, or whoever that person is that you're having an ingrained pattern with, right? Like, what if you saw them just with new eyes? They came here just like you, totally innocent, totally open, and then they developed their structure just like you, and So what you want to do is just kind of break the usual patterns of the mind, just see them differently than in a different, even just in a different role, like then, like if you're, if you see your mom as a victim and kind of a boring housewife or something, imagine your mother as a rock and roll singer or something, just jolt your mind for a moment, just give it a different image, like what we're doing. Now this may be a bit strange what I just said, but what it does, it breaks a pattern in the brain, like the synapses that are always firing this way, it's just like, whoa, like it just gives you a moment of a break, and then you can look at a judgment. Let's just say, my dad doesn't love me, or, let's just say that my dad doesn't love me enough or something, and just ask yourself, is that true? And can I really know that this is true? This is a great simple question, from, I don't know if you guys know the Byron Katie work, but this is like one of her greatest gifts. It's like just the question, is this true? Is this judgment true? Yeah. And then if I go, yep, my dad doesn't love me enough, then I can go, can I really know that this is true? Like, do I have all the information? Can I see from all the perspectives? Do I really know what's going on in my dad's heart, right? Do I really know how he expresses love, how he, what he might feel underneath everything, like what's going on in his mind, what's going on in his body? And of course, no, I can't really know that. That's just something I made up, and it's a real inquiry, like it's a real, like, thought stopper, this question, is this true? And can I know this is true? There's more steps to go, which I'm not going to get into right now, but just that question alone is incredible. Like, is this true? Same thing if you judge yourself, have a particular thought pattern about yourself, that this is how it is, this is how I am, and this is how I'm always going to be. For example, to give you an example of mine, I'm never going to be able to learn how to type. This is like something that's now in my brain, right? So, because I've tried several times to learn how to type properly. And so now I could definitely have this in my head that, like I'm just never going to learn it, So then I can ask myself, is that true? And can I really know that this is true? Like this is, I will never learn this, and I'm not able to learn it. And the answer is no, I don't know that. I can know it's very difficult for me. And I probably need more support than I have had so far for learning it. But but I can't really know, and just that kind of perspective loosens the grip of the mind, like how we have certain things just ingrained, how the people in our life are, who they are, how they function, how I function, how the world is, like we have such an ingrained picture. So that's hopefully helping you all here. This is a great question that you can just have with you in your pocket. Yeah. Great, Amalia. Amalia was just saying this is exactly what I'm working on now. Thank you. Yes. And this is, by the way, something, if you think you've got this down, yeah, I know this. I want to challenge you on that, because I think this is something we're going to be working with for the rest of our life. Unless we'll get some grace falls upon us and we'll just get instantly enlightened or whatever, and awake, and all the judgments are going to disappear forever, which is not what my experience is with anybody I know. We're going to have to deal with these judgments and find a more skillful, more graceful way how to be with them, other than just feeding them. Oh, and Leah, one more thing that's just coming to me is also just watch what comes out of your mouth, like for all of us, just watching for example, when it's a pattern with other people, what do I say? And let's say it's about my dad, right? It's like, what do I say to people about my dad? What do I tell everybody? This is how my dad is. My dad is selfish, or my dad doesn't love me, or my dad doesn't see me, or like, what do I say about that, to other people? And just really, in the Buddhists call this right speech, to watch this, because the more I say that, the more people I get enrolled in that story, So, what do you say here, Leah? That's exactly it, about the self-judgments. Yeah. So what I was just saying is about other people's judgments, judging other people, and it's the same about me. What do I say about myself to people? Like, I'm just a hopeless case, or I'm and you know me, I never do this, or I can't receive, or whatever I say about myself to other people goes the same way. Just like watching what comes out of our mouth and what we're putting out there as truth, which is different than if I was like sharing with you, Leah. If I was sharing it with you and saying, Leah, I notice that what I'm thinking right now is I'm a hopeless case, and like if I watch it and then speak from my observer and share that with you, and then I can say that's really painful for me to think this way about myself, Leah, and I could even ask you, Leah, could you just give me another perspective? So then I'm speaking about it, but I'm speaking about it not that I've bought into it, but I'm speaking about it from a observer's perspective and noticing this is causing pain for me, and I don't want to be speaking about myself this way, So I can even, Leah, enroll you and in helping me and saying, would you help me when this kind of stuff comes out of my mouth? And you hear me putting myself down in the way I'm speaking, could you help me and just give me a gentle, like, like, do you want to speak to yourself this way, Britta? So we can even use our relationships with our good friends and people that know us to help us break these patterns. Yeah. So, another question here is, when learning something new, how do you ease feelings of awkwardness and resistance? I work hard to remind myself to have a beginner's mind and have patience with myself, but I easily spin off into a story of how I will never be good enough at this particular thing and just feel frustrated. Any suggestions? Well, I'm totally get it. And I think I started to address it a little bit at the very beginning of this, that it's very important to be supported. This is why I just got Sarah here sitting behind me and the trees behind me, and like one of the things is like to get support with, especially when you're starting something for the first time and it's uncomfortable. You also want to be really gentle with yourself. Like, it's like I just told myself before I did my first Facebook Live here that like this is hard for you, so just be gentle with yourself. You're going to do great. Like things like of course you're nervous the first time you're doing it, so normalizing things for myself, like this is normal and everybody's experiencing this, and it's not about being perfect, it's just about being authentic, like, so I tell myself whatever feels resourcing to me, whatever feels like I would tell a really good friend who's doing something for the first time, and that awkwardness and resistance is part of the deal. There will be awkwardness, there will be resistance, and just to sort of embrace it, that is part of, we won't be masterful at anything that we're just starting. In fact, we won't be masterful for a really, 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 really long time. Like it takes a lot to get really good at something. And so in the beginning, we will stumble along, and to just go, okay, we're going to be stumbling through this first Facebook Live or through this first time, whatever we're doing that we're, but it's also so invigorating to do something for the first time. Yes, it's also exciting and you're really alive and your heart is pumping, and so there's kind of two things. One is there can be an excitement that we can ride, like we can ride the waves of nervousness or a fear that come along with something new, or there can be resistance. And many of us just don't even do anything new because we don't want to feel this, So I love these little emojis. This is super cute. Thank you. Where was our resistance? Yeah. So with the resistance, I have this feeling like I'll just take my resistance by the hand, and I go like, we can do this, and I remember the greater why, like, why am I doing this? Like, so with this Facebook Live, it's like a way to reach more people, and a way to connect with people in a way that there's only so many people that come to our workshops and trainings that I can share with, that I can connect with. And that's a very limited number of people. And this is a great way to reach more people, So, and I love connecting with people. I love being with people. I love sharing with people. And so that's my greater why. And then I tell my little resistant part that it's like, you know what, this is really awesome. Like I'm sharing with my resistance the greater why, like and also tell that part it's going to be okay, and just let me do it, like the big part of me, that has the big vision, just let me do this and you can just relax, and it's okay if we're stumbling along here. Yeah. So that's one way of dealing with resistance. Thank you, Georgia. So Georgia is telling me I'm doing great. That's very sweet. So by the way, this is an opportunity to receive this love that Georgia sent me through via her little text there, or whatever you call this comment. So she just made a comment saying, you're doing great, right? And so now I could brush this off and say, yeah, she's just saying that, or I could actually let that in and just go, somebody sent me some love, and actually let that, take a moment to breathe that in, and it's just like, this is a choice, because one of our themes here is also openness to receive, right? So it's a choice to let the love in and be humble enough to let it in, right? And open enough to let it in, which is always a little vulnerable, right? It's like I feel a little vulnerability inside of myself right now. It's like, ooh, yeah. And or I can brush it off and go, yeah. I can brush it off as saying, I don't need to know that I'm great, which is, by the way, a structure of the ego that we call the inflated ego, that is like saying, you know what, I don't need that. Or I can go to my deflated ego and go, she doesn't mean that, she's just saying that. Those are the two ways that we as human beings don't let the love in. Yeah, like, and the middle way would be just to accept it. Yeah, to accept that, the love. And it's very, very sweet. Then actually I have a connection. I don't actually know Georgia, but now I have a connection with Georgia, right? And I'm open. Yeah, so we have the choice. And when we probably get lots and lots of love sent our way all day, and most of the time we miss it because we don't have that beginner's mind, so, which is one of the awesome things about having a beginner's mind. And I hope I can convey how awesome it is, because you really get to experience life. Like, there's so many new things all day, new people, new plants, new animals, new experiences, all day, every day. And with a beginner's mind, the great thing about a beginner's mind is we actually get to experience it for the first time, which is, there's something about experiencing something for the first time that is just so awesome. That is like, we're innocent, we're available, we're present, and and we actually experience it. Like I always like experience that when people come into our workshops and they have the first experiences of awakening or really strong connection with themselves, and they go like, woo, and they just light up, and I love to see that in people like that, because there's something about experiencing something for the first time when you kinesthetically experience how beautiful you are, or how connected to grace you are, or like just your own personal goodness, and you really let that in. It's just like, whoa, so I love seeing people in our workshops and having these experiences, and there's always something I learn from that. I'm like, okay, am I still this open, like 40 years later or something? And can I let this in? Can I be like this open and receptive, and like actually get off my kind of jaded high horse, and just be here? Like, this is my first workshop, like I've never seen this before, kind of thing. And so that's the opportunity with the beginner's mind, with seeing things through fresh eyes. Very beautiful. People sending me love. Thank you. Let me do one more question. Yes, Sarah's telling me to only do one more question. Let me see which one I'm going to do. I'm going to do Bridget's. She says, I'm always challenged with opening to the things that feel particularly uncomfortable or painful. I feel like due to my life demands, I don't have the time to deal with them or sit with the feeling. I feel a sense of obligation as a mother to be in a good mood and to be present with my family, not to wallow in self-pity, etc. I also don't want to stuff things away. What's a realistic approach to making pain an opportunity without losing my grounding? Awesome question. So what's a realistic approach? A few moments, right? Like a realistic approach. I get that you're really busy. You're running around, driving your kids around from here to there, and you don't have like 20 minutes to sit in front of your altar and really feel everything and pray and meditate and be all open to everything and anything that you're feeling, What you do have might be a few moments, like a few moments of like, ooh, just first of all, acknowledging to yourself, this is painful. This comment that somebody just made, or this, sometimes it's just a look that somebody gives us, or it's just something that we read on Facebook, or it's something that all of a sudden we remember a conversation a few days ago that wasn't so great. Something isn't going our way, or, and it's just painful. There's a little owie, right? So first of all, it's just acknowledging that to ourselves, like, ooh, this hurts, like this just hurt, or I'm uncomfortable or something, and that can be just like a few seconds, right? Like just to admit that to ourselves, like this is not easy. Some of us are, we have different personalities. Like some of us are happy people that never acknowledge that anything is hurting us. Some of us are workaholics that just run through everything, so some of us are totally more sleepy and lethargic, so we don't acknowledge that either because it's too uncomfortable and we don't want to spend that much energy. So everybody's a little different, but we all have our way of not being with pain or with something uncomfortable, so just to acknowledge it kindly to ourselves, like this is hard. It takes a few seconds only, and maybe when you're in the car, the kids are off and you have a few moments, before you go grocery shopping or something, it's like just maybe you can put, in that car, you can just take a few moments to put your hands on your heart and just take 3 breaths into the uncomfortable feeling in your body, just to give it a little space, just a little, like to welcome it. So if it's anxiety that's coming up, just to go, welcome anxiety and feel it as a sensation in your body, just a moment, just a moment where there's nothing to do, there's nothing to fix. It's not about going into solution mode, what I'm going to do about this, but just being with it in a mindful and welcoming and compassionate way. And the deepest way to be with it really in a way is to be with the sensation in the body that this feeling brings forth. Yeah. And I tell you again, this is like a pattern interrupter. Yeah, I'm going to stop soon, but just like to tell you, if I can kind of sum this up, it's like we want to interrupt our regular patterns of how to be, how we're kind of stuck, or how patterns are ingrained, how to be with that in a more mindful way, in a more compassionate way, maybe even a creative way, like that is somehow interrupts this pattern, and then bring consciousness to it, bring presence to it, kindness, compassion, and that is what I'm leaving you with today. Thank you so much for joining me for my first new beginning here, and sending you much love. Mwah, 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 mwah.